Welcome back to Live from Paris here at France 24. Time now for business. We're joined in the studio by Kyle G. Brown, our business editor today, and also by Phillip Lee, a partner at Jones Day Law Offices. That's because we're going to be talking about that top story, of course, this morning. That is the funeral and the demise of Kim Jong-il in North Korea. Now, Kyle, it is the funeral, of course, today. We're going to take a look at North Korea's economic prospects. Probably not that positive.
Well, it's in a state of flux right now. There's going to be some interesting things happening. This week, for example, we saw a major delegation from the south to the north. That included the widow of former South Korean leader Kim Dae-jung, as well as the chairwoman of Hyundai Asan, so of the car maker that we're all familiar with. Now, apart from the diplomatic overtures, what do you think is the significance of this? I put this question to you, Mr. Phillip Lee. What do you think is the significance of this delegation so soon after the death of Kim Jong-il?
Yeah, when you know the funerals of Kim Jong-il and this momentum in the history of North Korea is relies also on the protocol and significance of actions and behaviors. And I think it's a way for South Korea to show the connection between the two countries, although the South Korean government has decided not to participate officially in the funerals. But it's a way to maintain the connection and to have two prominent figures, one the late widow of the late Kim Dae-jung president, and Mrs. Hyun as a representative of business circles and one company which made investments in North Korea to be in Pyongyang.
You mentioned some of that investment in North Korea. The reputation for North Korea is, of course, the hermit nation, very much a closed country. Does some trade still continue between North and South?
Yeah, indeed, it is a closed country, and we cannot speak about genuine and true trade between North Korea and other countries. But there have been growing trade between North Korea and South Korea since decades now. And China is a major trading partner for North Korea. So trade and investment is very limited, obviously, not made in the way we can see in other countries, neighboring countries, but it's slightly growing.
And is it the fact that this is an opportunity, though, for some further thawing in relations between the two countries, particularly in economic terms? Could you tell me, for example, you've been working with European companies for some time who make investments in North Korea. Have there been more inquiries? Has there been more activity?
You know, basically the multinational companies are eager to operate in North Korea because there are natural resources. It's a new frontier, obviously new frontier for many companies, South Korean companies and foreign multinationals. But the legal framework is still very uncertain. So it's not easy still for European or other companies to invest truly in North Korea.
But are you receiving more calls, more inquiries?
Yeah, there have been more inquiries recently, that's true.
Phillip Lee, Jones and Day Law Offices, thank you very much for that look at the North Korean economy from your perspective. Now, Kyle, tell us how the Asian markets have been faring on this day of that funeral.
Well, indeed, staying in North Korea, the Kospi is down. And in fact, right across the board, as we'll see there, the Asian markets are in the red. South Korea's Kospi lost over 1%. The Hang Seng down as well. And economic reports behind all of that show that Japan's industrial production dropped, as well as confidence among South Korean manufacturers. So in spite of the potential thaw, we're seeing not a lot of confidence among investors.
Investors, of course, not particularly liking the uncertainty of this current situation. Shares in Tokyo Electric Power fell to a 6-month low too after suggestions it should consider nationalization. TEPCO has lost $39 billion in market share since the twin earthquake and tsunami in Japan that led to the worst nuclear crisis in 25 years. Luke Schrego has this report.
The Tokyo Electric Power Company is looking to cover its costs. It wanted nearly 690 billion yen, almost $9 billion, to help pay out compensation to victims of Japan's Fukushima nuclear disaster. Authorities didn't seem impressed, warning against moves to raise electricity rates. They responded with an option to nationalise the beleaguered firm.
I want you to consider all options, including temporary government control of TEPCO.
The company's shares plunged to their lowest level in months at the news. This is an interim report pinned the blame on both TEPCO and the government for mishandling the crisis throughout, not least underestimating the damage a tsunami of up to 14 meters in height could cause.
I think it is highly irresponsible to tackle the problem while saying what had happened was beyond their expectations.
What's more, the report says better technical choices and more training could have limited the damage from the disaster. The emergency response came under criticism too. The situation was found to be such a mess that Fukushima's residents were even sent towards radioactive areas rather than safe zones. 9 months on, the cleanup at the Fukushima plant is well underway, but it seems getting station operator TEPCO out of trouble could well take even longer.
Turning now to something of some good news in the US, and consumer confidence is on the rise.
Yes, a rare bit of good news from the business desk here. I have to say, last month, the conference board revealed that for the first time in 8 months, there has been an increase in, such an increase in consumer confidence as to reach 65 points above the 55 last month.
Well, that's all very well and good, but what exactly do those figures mean?
Now, of course, these are good figures. These are positive figures. They bode well for the U.S. economy, but they're not quite at the same levels that we saw pre-crisis. Now, to put it in perspective, we've got consumer spending rising by only 0.1%, but the point is that it actually rises on the good news of unemployment levels. They fell last month to the lowest levels in more than 2 years. So it's this kind of good news that consumers are basically operating on, that cheap gas prices and the fact that it's a holiday season still, let's not forget. And so spending is still coasting along, and they're taking advantage really of the bargains and the deals.
Okay, so that's good news in the US. Moving to the current situation in Europe. And last week, of course, we had the European Central Bank basically offered almost 500 billion euros in loans to lots of banks here in the Eurozone to try and contain the debt crisis. Now you're going to tell me why exactly some of those banks are actually putting it back in to the ECB's coffers.
Basically, they're putting it in the deposit box. I mean, it's still theirs for the using right now, but at a very modest rate. Now, let's have another look at the figure that you just mentioned there. 489 billion euros exactly. Most of that has gone back into deposits, as we say. Now, that's close to the entire amount, as we can see there. The whole point of doing it in the first place was to facilitate the flow of money between banks, to regenerate confidence in the Eurozone economies. Now, the hope was that the money would be used to buy up sovereign debt and, as I say, to rebuild trust. But that's not likely to happen anytime soon. Let's look at the figures here. The original interest rate of the loans that the ECB put out to those some 500 banks was at 1%. Now, the interest paid on those deposits that these banks are putting back into the ECB, just a quarter of that 1%. So they're putting it in a safe haven, but obviously very low returns.
Kyle Brown, thank you very much. That's all we've got time for in this Business Bulletin. You'll be back in about an hour and a half, I believe, for all the latest from the business front. You're watching France 24 Morning live from Paris. Do stay tuned. More news and headlines after the break.
The Observers.
Welcome to the France 24 Observers.
Take a new look at the news. Eyewitness accounts from those at the heart of the action all over the world, decoded by our journalists. Exclusive videos you've never seen before. Don't miss The Observers with Derek Thompson every Saturday, 6:50 a.m. Paris time on France 24.
As smoking rates drop around the world, Indonesians are lighting up more than ever. This week, Health heads to Jakarta to investigate a disturbing trend: children under 10 years of age refusing to kick the habit.
Don't miss Health today, 10:15 a.m. Paris time on France 24.